In this video, we're going to take a look at cell references, how to master and understand them, and how they can be incorporated into our data analysis as we're building out formulas, can help make processes more automated and flexible. To get us started, we'll take a look at what the different types of cell references we have available. Our first one will be an open cell reference, where if we reference a specific cell, in this case H3, we can hit enter. And as we drag this to the right and down, we can see that these cells populate with all of the data that is referenced over here. Now, if we use the same H3 cell, but in this case we hit F4, we now have a fixed or locked cell reference, where any data that we're using in the cell will only be tied to H3. So as we pull this to the right and down, we can see that the only number that is returning is 1, since this is fixed on H3 no matter which cell. So we can gray these out for this illustration, just to show that this is only going to be referenced the cell that we have locked that array on. Now we can also fix row numbers. So if we click into H3, in this case, we can hit F4 twice, and we'll see that the $ is now in front of the row. This means that we will only be staying in the third row for any time we drag our cells over. So in this case, we see 1, 10, and 100 in our third row. But as we drag this down, we can see that we don't get any of the data below because we're only fixed to the specific row. So we can gray that out, as this will only allow the cell reference to move left and right. And the last one we have is a fixed column reference. And if we reference H3, and we hit F4 1, 2, 3 times, we see that the $ is in front of our column H. And as we move to the right, we can see that it will not pick up the 10 or 100, since we're only locked into this first H column. And as we drag down, we can see that we get 2 and 3 populated, but these are not updated with that array. So this is only looking at the column being fixed with the rows being able to move up and down. Now let's take a look at some examples of this in practice. For this first example, we have revenue per quarter data and customer per quarter data, and we want to calculate that off into this table. And since our data is structured in the same way, we'll be okay with having a reference that is not fixed in any manner. So for this, we could select our revenue for Q1 2020, divide that by our customers for Q1 2020. And if we pull this to the right, pull this down, we see that our table has now dynamically updated, and we can confirm that this is now mirrored in these tables for this equation. For another example, we can look at if we have some product category unit price and want to apply different sales tax rates. There's 2 ways we could do this, where we could enter our unit price times our sales tax, and we'll want to fix that so that that does not move. And we can pull that down. And we can see as we click into the bottom one that this is referencing still the same cell G29. And we could do the same thing for Canada unit price times our Canada sales tax to F4, and then send this formula down and confirm that that is now referencing unit price and Canada sales tax. One slightly more dynamic way we could do this is if we click on our unit price, and if we hit F4 3 times to lock our column, since we will not want to move from column C, but we're okay with the row changing, and we can multiply that by our sales tax. And in this case, we're okay with the column going from left to right, but we don't want to move out of row 29. In that case, we can drag this formula over and down and simultaneously update both of those based on unit price and the sales tax. And we can confirm that by clicking into these bottom cells and seeing that these references are correct. One more example we can take a look at is building out a table where we want to reference product and month data. And for this, we want to sum our revenue by the different product categories and by the month that they occurred. And we can do a SUMIFS function where we want to sum our revenue, and we'll hit F4 to lock that array since we don't want to move out of that. The first criteria we'll be looking at is our product, and we'll lock that array as well by hitting F4. And when we get into criteria, we can click on software. And for this, we want to make sure that our column stays locked. So we'll put the $ in front of the F as we only want this to move up and down on product. And then the next criteria range will be our month. We'll highlight that and hit F4 to lock that. And we'll look at our months at the top. And for this, we want the column to be able to move left and right, but we want the row to stay on 3. So we'll F4 twice. We'll hit enter. Now, as we drag this to the right and down, and we can click into this, we can see that this has now dynamically updated with the product and the month as we've dragged it to the right and down. So saving us time needing to enter the same formula into each cell or manually updating it as we drag the formula to the right and down. So that's why it's important to understand cell references, how they can help you out in your workflow, make your formulas more dynamic and flexible as you're working with your data.